Hello, my dear students. Welcome back. This is the third part of the video, and we are reading chapter Mother's Day, written by J.B. Priestley. Students, we have read up to the part where we see that how Mrs. Pearson, with Mrs. Fitzgerald's personality, that is, changed Mrs. Pearson, she is treating Doris Pearson. So when Doris she enters home and she sees her mother smoking and playing with cards, she is little shocked, and then she tells her mother to iron her yellow dress, but the mother she refuses to do that. And then she starts commenting on her boyfriend Charlie Spence. So here we see that how Doris is little annoyed when the mother criticizes that Charlie Spence, right? So we will start from this part where we see that Doris is saying, why, what's the matter with you? Why shouldn't I go out with Charlie Spence if he asks me and I want to? Any objections? Go on. You might as well tell me. So Doris is little annoyed at the behavior of her mother, and she questions her that why she shouldn't go out with Charlie Spence, and she wanted to go out with him, and she asked her mother that if there was any objection from her side. Mrs. Pearson, in a very severe manner, she says, "Can't you find anybody better? I wouldn't be seen dead with Charlie Spence, buck teeth, half witted." So Mrs. Pearson again criticizes Charlie Spence, and she tells Doris that she would not even would like to see dead with Charlie Spence, such a kind of boyfriend, because she says that he is a buck teeth and half witted, that he is not intelligent and also not good looking. And Doris, she tries to defend Charlie Spence by saying that he isn't. To this, Mrs. Pearson says, "When I was your age, I would have found somebody better than Charlie Spence or given up myself as bad job." So Mrs. Pearson, she says that she would have done a better job at finding a good boy, someone who must have been better than Charlie Spence. And had she failed at doing so, she would have given up finding anyone, declaring that she is bad at it. So देखिए किस तरह से मिसेस पियर्सन अपनी बेटी को कुछ समझाना चाहती हैं कि जो बॉयफ्रेंड के साथ वो घूम रही है वो एक अच्छा बॉयफ्रेंड नहीं है, वो एक अच्छा लड़का नहीं है और वो उतना इंटेलिजेंट भी नहीं है. एंड डॉरिस इज नियरली इन टीयर्स और वो अपनी मदर को कहती हैं, "ओ शट अप." Doris runs out left, and Mrs. Pearson, she chuckles and begins putting the cards together. So almost crying, Jo Doris says, she asks Mrs. Pearson to stop taunting her, stop picking at her, and she runs out towards the left side. Mrs. Pearson, she chuckles, she enjoys the situation, and she starts putting the cards together that were lying spread on the table. And then after a moment, Cyril Pearson enters left. He is the masculine counterpart of Doris. So, physical description is given here of Cyril Pearson, that he has a good physique, and in contrast to Doris. Cyril briskly, "Hello, Mum, tea ready." So, in a quick manner, energetic manner, Cyril enters the room and he questions that if the tea is made as soon as he reaches home. Mrs. Pearson, "No." Cyril, moving to the table, annoyed, "Why not?" So, we see that how Cyril is little annoyed when he found that tea is not ready at that moment. Mrs. Pearson, very coolly, "I couldn't bother." Cyril, feeling off color or something. So, when he saw that mother, she has not prepared the tea, and when mother tells Cyril that she didn't bother to prepare the tea, Cyril, he actually shows his concern towards mother, as if asking her that if she was all right. And to this, Mrs. Pearson said, "Never felt better in life." So जब सिरिल ये पूछता है कि क्या आपकी तबीयत तो ठीक है, क्या जो आपने चाय नहीं बनाई है, मिसेस पियर्सन कहती हैं कि आज से पहले उन्होंने इतना अच्छा महसूस नहीं किया. Cyril a little aggressive, so aggressively he says, "What's the idea then, Mrs. Pearson?" "Just a change." So, on hearing her reply, he turns argumentative and asks her to explain कि वो क्या चाहती हैं, क्या बात है then? And Mrs. Pearson क्या कहती हैं कि it is just a चेंज, वो अपनी सिर्फ मोनोटनी को ब्रेक करना चाहती हैं. सो शी सेज जस्ट फॉर अ चेंज टू ब्रेक द मोनोटनी शी हैज नॉट प्रिपेयर्ड द टी. Cyril again brusquely. Well, snap out of it, Ma, and get cracking. Haven't too much time. So, वो कहता है कि चलो जो कुछ भी है, come out of it, snap out of it, and get cracking, get started. And he says, I don't have much time. So, कहता है कि जल्दी से उठिए और चाय बना दीजिए, काम करना शुरू कर दीजिए क्योंकि मेरे पास ज्यादा समय नहीं है. Mrs. Pearson, she says, I have plenty of time. Cyril, yes, but I haven't got a busy night tonight. Moving left to the door, she says, did you put my things out? So, जब जो सिरिल पियर्सन है वो पूछता है कि मेरे पास, वो कहता है कि मेरे पास अब ज़्यादा समय नहीं है, आज का दिन मेरे लिए बहुत बिजी है, रात बिजी होने वाली है. एंड वो क्वेश्चन करता है, डिड यू पुट माई थिंग्स आउट, कि क्या आपने मेरी चीज़ें रेडी की हैं, इफ़ his things are ready. Mrs. Pearson coolly, can't remember, but I doubt it. So, in a very chilled out manner, she again tells Cyril that she can't recall taking them out. Probably she didn't take them out. So, Mrs. Pearson बहुत ही calm way में उसे बताती हैं कि उन्होंने वो चीजें नहीं निकाली हैं. Mrs. Pearson coolly, can't remember, but I doubt it. Cyril says, now look, when I asked you this morning, you promised. You said you would have a look through them first in case there was any mending required. So, uh, in a kind of attempt to raise an objection, Cyril जो है वो Mrs. Pearson को कहते हैं कि he reminds that she promised him in the morning that she would make the things ready, and she committed to fix them in case they needed any kind of repairs, कि अगर कोई रिपेयर की ज़रूरत थी, मेंडिंग की ज़रूरत थी, उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया था कि वो सब कुछ रेडी करके रखेंगी. Mrs. Pearson कहती हैं, yes, well now I have decided I don't like mending. So Mrs. Pearson says that she has now changed her mind because she has realized that she doesn't like fixing things or mending things or repairing things. Now, Cyril, that's a nice way to talk. What would happen if we all talked like that? So here Cyril objects to Mrs. Pearson's way of speaking, and he asks her how she would feel if all of them talked to her like that. Mrs. Pearson कहती हैं, you all do talk like that. If there's something at home you don't want to do, you don't do it. And if it's something at your work, you get the union to bar it. Now all that's happened is that I have joined the movement. So Mrs. Pearson, she clarifies that they already talk to her in an objectionable tone. They all do speak to her like that. दे डू वॉट दे वॉन्ट एंड लीव वॉट दे डोंट. सो जब उनका कोई चीज करने को मन नहीं करता है, वो उस काम को नहीं करते हैं. At home they have been given this privilege, and is the situation in the and if there is situation in the office where they do not like to do something, they get the union to interfere. तो अगर ऑफिस में अपनी काम करने की जगह पर उन्हें अगर कोई चीज नहीं करने का मन करता है, तो वो क्या करते हैं, वो यूनियन को इकट्ठा करते हैं to bar it, to stop it. एंड मिसेस पियर्सन क्या कहती हैं, दैट नाउ शी हैज जॉइंड द मूवमेंट. तो बदलाव क्या है अब, और जो घटा है वो क्या है, आई हैव नाउ जॉइंड द मूवमेंट. सो शी हैज स्टार्टेड एक्टिंग द सेम वे वेयर शी वोंट डू व्हाट शी डजंट वांट टू. तो वो कहती हैं कि अब मैंने जो मूवमेंट ज्वाइन किया है, मैं वो काम नहीं करूंगी जो मैं करना नहीं चाहती हूँ. Cyril is a little staggered. Staggered means astonished, deeply shocked. He says, I don't get this, mom. What's going on? So, Mrs. Pearson क्या कहती हैं? Little laconic and sinister. Means यहाँ पर sinister का मतलब है giving an impression that something evil is going to happen in a tone, we can say, brief words in a precise manner. She just declares changes. और वो क्या कहती हैं कि वो चूज करती हैं कम से कम शब्दों में उसे समझाना. सो चूजिंग नॉट टू स्पीक अ लॉट, शी इम्प्लाइज दैट थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू चेंज फ्रॉम नाउ. और वो बहुत कम शब्दों में सीरियल को ये समझा देती हैं कि अब जो है बदलाव होने वाला है. डॉरिस एंटर्स लेफ्ट. She is in the process of dressing and is now wearing a wrap. She looks pale and red eyed. तो डोरिस तभी वापस एंटर करती हैं स्टेज पर और वो अभी भी अपने ड्रेसिंग गाउन के पहने हुई हैं और उन्होंने अभी वो तैयार हो रही हैं अपनी दोस्त के घर जाने के लिए। सो हम क्या देखते हैं, मिसेस पियर्सन कहती हैं, यू लुक टेरिबल, आई वुडंट वियर दैट फेस इवन फॉर 40 pence. So when Doris appears on the scene with her eyes turned red and her face, pale face, white face, Mrs. Pearson asks her what's wrong, and she also declares that how would she go with Charlie Spence with this type of face. And वो कहती हैं कि even चार्ली स्पेंस जैसे बॉयफ्रेंड के लिए वो इस तरह का फेस भी नहीं लेकर उसके साथ बाहर जाएंगी. सो शी अगेन ट्राइज टू टॉन्ट हियर डोरिस. डोरिस मूविंग अबव द टेबल एंग्रीली. सो डोरिस अब वाकई में बहुत गुस्से में है एंड वो कहती हैं, ओ शट अप अबाउट चार्ली स्पेंस एंड एनी हाउ आई एम नॉट रेडी येट, जस्ट ड्रेसिंग, and if I do look terrible, it is your fault. You made me cry. So Doris is again steamed up here. वो गुस्से से भरी हुई है. And she tells her mother to not to talk to her like that. And she further adds that she is not ready yet. And the reason behind her awful look, the terrible look that she had, is that she has been crying after she talked with her. So she says that she was responsible for her face, the way she was looking at that time. So that way she blames her mother for that. Cyril, curious, why? What did she do? So Cyril, जो है, he interrupts and he interrogates from them that what did mother do? Doris, never you mind. So Doris tells her brother to stay out of it. Mrs. Pearson, rising and preparing to move to kitchen. Have we any stout left? I can't remember. Stout here is alcoholic liquor. So वो सिरिल से पूछती हैं कि क्या उनके घर में पीने के लिए कुछ ड्रिंक है, अल्कोहल है. So, Cyril, bottle or two, I think, but you don't want stout now. And Cyril, he recalls that there might be one or two bottles of it left, and he asks her mother in a weird tone that after all this mess, she doesn't need stout. And उन्हें स्टाउट की क्या जरूरत है, और वो पूछती हैं कि वो स्टाउट इस वक्त क्यों चाहती हैं. मिसेस पियर्सन मूविंग लेफ्ट स्लोली कहती हैं, आई डू, व्हाट फॉर. सिरिल पूछता है. मिसेस पियर्सन टर्निंग एट द डोर, टू ड्रिंक यू क्लॉट. सो क्लॉट मीन्स कॉलिंग हर ओन सन स्टूपिड. सो जो सिरिल है वो जब पूछता है कि वो उन्हें बताता है कि उनके घर एक या दो बॉटल्स पड़ी होंगी, लेकिन वो क्यों इस वक्त चाहती हैं, वो इस वक्त तो नहीं पीना चाहेंगी. एंड मिसेस पियर्सन कहती हैं कि वो इस वक्त पीना चाहती हैं. Mrs. Pearson exits right. Instantly, Cyril and Doris are in a huddle, close together. So huddle means जल्दी से वो एक दूसरे के करीब आते हैं. And close together at left center, rapidly whispering. So वो आपस में whisper करते हुए बातें करने लगते हैं as the mother goes out of that room. Doris, has she been like that with you too? Cyril, yes, no tea ready, couldn't care less. So वो आपस में अब एक दूसरे की सिचुएशन के बारे में बात करने लगते हैं, दैट कि तुम्हारे साथ भी क्या मदर ने इसी तरह से बिहेव किया है. सो डोरिस वो अपने ब्रदर से पूछती है इफ देयर मॉम हैज बीन बिहेविंग वियर्ड विद हिम एज वेल. Cyril, yes, no tea ready, couldn't care less. So Cyril also tells Doris that she has been behaving like that with him too, and she didn't even make tea for him. Doris, well, I'm glad it's both of us. I thought I had done something wrong. Doris is relieved to hear that they both are in the same boat because she feared it is her who had hurt Mrs. Pearson in some way. It is her who has actually created something, done something bad, and that Mrs. Pearson, she was angry at her. Cyril कहता है, so did I, but it's her, of course. And Cyril expresses that he thought the same, but actually it's Mrs. Pearson who has been behaving odd. So वो क्या कहता है कि ये जो हुआ है उसे भी ऐसा ही महसूस हो रहा था कि ये सिर्फ एज इफ उसने कुछ गलती कर दी है, और उसे लगा कि शायद उनकी गलती की वजह से मदर इस तरह से ऑड वे में बिहेव कर रही हैं. बट सिरिल बताता है कि नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. जो भी कुछ है उन्हें ऐसा लगता है कि ये मदर को ही कुछ हुआ है एंड शी हैज डन समथिंग हु इज बिहेविंग इन एन ऑड वे. एंड इसके बाद सिरिल कहता है कि आई आस्क्ड हर इफ शी वाज फीलिंग ऑफ कलर एंड शी सेड शी वाजंट। डोरिस जो है वो बताती है, जब वो ये कहती है कि शी सॉ हर मदर स्मोकिंग, तो शी वाज शॉक्ड एट दैट टाइम, शी सेज दैट शी कुडंट बिलीव हर आईज। एंड इस पर सिरिल क्या कहता है कि यस आई आस्क्ड हर इफ शी वाज फीलिंग ऑफ कलर एंड शी सेड दैट शी हैड नेवर फेल्ट बेटर। To this, Doris said, well, she's suddenly all different. And that's what made me cry. It wasn't what she said, but the way she said it and the way she looked. So, Doris भी ये बात accept करती है and she says that yes, suddenly she's amazed the way she is looking different at that moment. And she tells Cyril that it is not her words that hurt her, but the look in her eyes that made her cry. The way she has behaved at that moment, the look that was in her eyes, it has actually made her cry. Cyril says, haven't noticed that she looks just the same to me. So Cyrilia mentions that he has not noticed any change in her appearance though. Doris says, she doesn't to me. Do you think she could have hit her head or something, and got what is it, So Doris, she is confused and she says that it might be that their mother, she has actually gone crazy, or she might have hit her head with something, कि उन्हें कोई दिमाग में चोट लग गई हो और इसी वजह से वो इस तरह से बिहेव कर रही हो. Cyril again staggered. He says, do you mean she is barmy? Barmy means gone crazy. कि क्या वो क्रेजी हो गई हैं और वो इस तरह से बिहेव कर रही हैं. सो इस पर डॉरिस कहती है, नो यू फैट हेड, कॉन्कशंस शी माइट हैव. सो इस पर डॉरिस कहती हैं कि नहीं, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट, बट कॉन्कशंस हो सकते हैं. कॉन्कशन मीन्स इन अ स्टेट ऑफ शॉक, जब आपको दौरे पड़ते हैं. एंड शी सेज शी माइट हैव दोस कॉन्कशंस एट दैट मोमेंट. Cyril says sounds far-fetched. Far-fetched means you are just exaggerating the things. It can't happen with their mother. Doris says, well, she is far fetched, if you ask me. She suddenly begins to giggle. एंड डोरिस उस सिचुएशन में मजाक करते हुए कहती है कि yes, she is actually far fetched. That means somewhere she is behaving in a little odd manner. And she says that yes, we can say that situation has a little exaggerated at the moment, if you ask me. And वो ये कहते कहते हंस पड़ती है. सिरिल, नाउ देन व्हाट इज इट? दैट मीन्स डोरिस किसी और बात पर इशारा करते हुए जब हंस पड़ती हैं, सिरिल आस्क्ड दैट व्हाट वाज इट दैट शी वाज लाफिंग एट. Doris, if she's going to be like this when dad comes home, she giggles again. So Doris जो कहती है कि अगर just think about the situation when their dad comes back home and they start laughing. So ये situation imagine करते हैं कि अगर उनकी मदर की हालत वैसी ही रही तो क्या होगा जब उनके पिता घर वापस आएंगे. So Doris actually she is indicating at the situation that what is going to happen when their father sees Mrs. Pearson behaving this way. Cyril begins to guffaw. Guffaw means laugh loudly. I'm staying in for that two front dress circles for the first house. So Cyril जो है, he makes fun of what is going to happen in that case, and he jokes about it while saying that he is even willing to stay at home for seeing that. So when he says two front dress circles for the first house means he wanted, ये सिनेमा टिकट्स की बात होती है, जैसे हम कहते हैं ना कि वी वांट टू एंजॉय अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग, तो हम फ्रंट सर्कल्स के सीट्स लेते हैं एंड वी एंजॉय द मूवी. So he says that I also want to stay at home that night and enjoy what was going to happen at that time. So Mrs. Pearson, she enters right carrying a bottle of stout and a half-filled glass. Cyril and Doris try to stop their guffawing and giggling, but they are not quick enough. Mrs. Pearson regards them with contempt. Mrs. Pearson, coldly, you two are always talking about being grown up. Why don't you both try for once to be your age? And she moves to the settee and sits. So while the two siblings they were talking, Mrs. Pearson she enters the room with the stout, and they fail to control their laughter. Mrs. Pearson she observes them laughing and then again she ridicules them. वो वापस से उनका मजाक उड़ाते हुए क्या करती हैं, वो सेट्टी पर बैठते हुए कहती हैं दैट हाउ दे बोथ ऑफ देम रिगार्ड themselves as mature and adult, but they never behave like that. So she asked them to behave and be responsible like people of their एज. So वो कहती हैं कि तुम हमेशा ग्रोन अप होने की बात करते हो, मेच्योर होने की बात करते हो, तो फिर तुम वैसे बिहेव क्यों नहीं करते? Cyril, can't we laugh now? So Cyril जो है, he is little annoyed and he asks Mrs. Pearson that if she has any objection to their laughing too. Mrs. Pearson, yes, if it is funny, go on, tell me. Make me laugh, I could do with it. And Mrs. Pearson says that she has no problem with them laughing at something which is funny. So वो कहती हैं कि अगर वो किसी फनी बात पर हंस रहे हैं, उन्हें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Instead, she asks them to make her laugh as well by telling her what they were talking about. And Doris कहती है, you know, you never understand our jokes, mom. So Doris, she kind of undermines Mrs. Pearson's ability to understand their jokes. You know, अक्सर हम कह देते हैं ना अपने पेरेंट्स से कि मम्मा आप नहीं समझोगे, आप रहने दो. So similar way, Doris कहती है कि mom, you never understand our jokes. So dear students, today we will stop here for this part of the chapter, at this part of the chapter, right? So read this story up to this part. In the next session, we will continue reading the chapter. Have a nice day, all of you. Thank you.